a passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver. Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Hello, and welcome to this week's Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes, where we're changing the world, wait for it, one Om at a time. And we are on the third Thursday of the month, and the third Thursday of the month means none other than Rob Stewart and Planetary Influences. And I want to say innercenter.org, and it's not innercenter.org anymore. And he's going to remind me of the new website, but you can still go to innercenter.org because it forwards you to the new website. And my head is solidly in Mercury retrograde, so I'm not going to remember it. But this is the week where Rob and I talk about what's going on in the skies and what is your astrological weather going to be like over the next month, so that you can plan for those rainy days, those sunny days, those windy days, and it's fall, so those getting colder days, at least for those of us here in the Northeast, which both Rob and I are. So, Rob, remind me, I did really good the last two shows. I think I got it, but this show, I'm blank. What is the new website?
Yeah, so the website is innercenterastrology.com, and if anyone's interested in an astrology reading or consultation, you can visit that website, innercenterastrology.com. Not so hard to remember, and I did have it down. Remember the last couple of shows? Yeah.
I was really good with it.
Oh, for sure.
That Mercury retrograde hit, and I just went, woo! Right off center. Now, if you do have questions about that you'd like to ask either Rob or I about astrology or about what's going on in the skies, or I don't know, anything you want, actually, we'll take any questions as long as they're respectful. You can ask those questions by calling in at 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. Call in and get your questions answered. So, Mr. Rob, let's start a little bit like we are in a Mercury retrograde, and you talked about it a little bit that we were going to be headed there. But you know, every Mercury retrograde is different because every Mercury retrograde is in a different sign, and then it's going to hit people in a different house. So, before we get into kind of the stuff that's coming up for the month, where is this Mercury retrograde hitting you? And where are you going to have the most problems with it?
Right. So Mercury's retrograde right now, it began on September 10th and will be in retrograde motion through October 2nd. And, we talked about it last show, but some of us can really feel the effects of this. That we all know, most of us know anyways, with a full moon, you can feel a bit more emotional. Things can be triggered a bit more. And when a Mercury's retrograde, it really, communications can get kind of mixed up. Maybe you send a text message to the wrong person, or there's miscommunications, misinterpretations of communications. Really at the root of it, it's a time to sort of reflect and review things in life related to our perception, related to our thinking, related to the way we communicate. And it really slows things down quite a bit. And so it's a great time to take stock and to meditate, to take things slow. That's all sort of themes for Mercury retrograde. And this Mercury retrograde is in the sign of Libra. It's against, basically Mercury's moving backwards from our perspective across the constellation of Libra. And so this sort of communication processing that we're all going through is in the area of relationships. Libra represents relationships, represents connecting with other people, connecting with friends, colleagues, your romantic partner, and it's a time to sort of review and reflect on communication in those areas of life.
Yeah. So, and then like in my case, we're talking, to me, it's mostly in the 11th house that it's going through. And, it's going to hit some 10th house, but mostly 11th house stuff. So then we go down another layer. This is the whole thing about astrology is, we talk about this regularly on the show when we do it, is it's so many layers. And the more layers you get down, the more information you get. So it is relationship. It can be values because it's Libra. What are your values, right?
Yeah.
But it is also around 11th house. For me, it's around 11th house stuff because that's where it's hitting. The part of my 10th, part of my 11th, depending on the actual degree that it's going into. And so it's asking me to look at my business relationships, to go in, get quiet, not jump to things, not make big changes, but to evaluate. I was looking at a Mercury retrograde as an invitation for evaluation in the areas of like how you communicate and how and what you're thinking about things. And then I bring it down to it's that, but it's also in my relationship with things that are larger than I am and friends and any communities I belong to or any organizations that I'm involved with or things like this, because it's also going to be tripping in and out of my 11th house. So now I can kind of look at the place where are the messages or the lessons or the opportunities, even more specifically than just to say it's a Mercury retrograde. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And, astrology is a wonderful tool for self-inquiry, for self-reflection, to explore self-awareness, really. And, with this Mercury retrograde, for you, it's occurring in the 11th house. The 11th house is related to goals. And so, it's a great time for you to reflect and review and look at your thinking related towards your goals, to your future plans, those types of things. This is a great time to review, reflect, and analyze those things. Basically, Mercury retrograde is a great time to review things, but not the best time for moving forward on new projects. It's more of a reflective period of time. And I'm not going to go down to this layer because I want to get into our astrological weather forecast. But then it's also, what do I have in the 10th? What do I have in the 11th natally? Is that Mercury going to be affecting any of those, those natal plants, geranium, planets. And is it going to, is there extra energy there because I have planets there? And again, then that takes it down to looking at it, again, as another level or another layer, and getting to a place where you can kind of say, here's where I can do some really good work now. And this is where the astrology is kind of telling me this is a good place to look and a good place to do it. Like you said, the 11th house goals. And, so I'm looking at my goal to retire. So I think since Mercury's retrograde, I think I should have retired yesterday. Bye. Finish the show without me. I'm gone. No. Have you looked at what house of yours it's fallen through these days? Yeah. For me, it's in the 3rd house. That's, it really focuses on communication, listening, what I'm perceiving, taking in information. And I always describe astrology in terms of it's a really good. I don't know why it works, but it's just a really good system, so to speak, to understand the timings of general themes and energies, for lack of a better word, that are unfolding in our lives. Just like the seasons change and winter comes and goes and summer comes and goes, and summer is a great time to plan for time by the water and by the lake or the ocean. Winter is a great time to make sure you have enough wood or fuel in your house. Same is true with astrology. It's just there's times that are more optimal for self-reflection, times that are more optimal for starting new projects. And it's a really helpful tool to evaluate these things. And with Mercury retrograde, it happens 4 times a year, and it's a great time to just really take things a bit slower. It's not optimal for starting new things, but it's about reviewing and looking at your communication with others. Where am I being clear? Where am I not being clear? Those types of themes.
So let me ask you this question. And again, we're going to get to the upcoming astrological forecast. We've got plenty of time. Some months we have so much we can barely cover it all, and in some months there's just less going on that's changing. And so I want to take a month like this where we've got some stuff, but it's not a ton of stuff. And I want to ask you another question. Now, I'm assuming, this is an assumption here because I don't know it to be true, you do solar returns for your clients?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I mean, I know I do, so I would assume you do as well. I mean, It's a pretty standard stock and trade for people that do astrology. So somebody's birthday is today. Their solar return chart is going to have Mercury retrograde for the year. And maybe their natal chart doesn't have a Mercury retrograde. Maybe their progress chart does not have a Mercury retrograde. But their solar return chart is going to have this Mercury retrograde for the year. How do you communicate to somebody if I came to you and said, so looking at my solar return, what's my year look like? And suddenly I'm going to have a Mercury retrograde and I don't have it in any of my other charts. What would you say to me? What would you say to that person?
Yeah, I would say to that person, hey, this is a great time astrologically this year ahead to look at, what are some ways that you can change your thinking or reevaluate your thinking. For example, say it's in your 11th house, like it is for you currently, related to your dreams and your plans and your even your groups, the groups that you're connected with and your tribe, so to speak. Maybe there's something that is asking to be re-looked at, rethought, reimagined. And another way, it could also be, what are the ways that you're perceiving information or things in your, are you listening? Are you perceiving in a way that's right for you? Sometimes when Mercury goes retrograde, it's time to, if we're over listening or if we're over communicating, it's time to switch that around. Maybe listen more, or maybe express yourself more and put things out there in a new way. But the bottom line is, like, it's a great time to change, to make new choices in that area of life. And
take the year to contemplate those choices.
That's right.
Because in a normal Mercury retrograde, Mercury is retrograde for how long? Like, just like this Mercury is for...
Yeah, it's 3 weeks. Yeah, 3 weeks.
Yeah, 21 days. So 21 days is okay, well, I can hold off on 21 days. For 21 days I can think about stuff. There's a lot of things I don't have to make immediate change and stuff. But if it's going to be retrograde, especially if it's not normally retrograde. Now, in my birth chart, Mercury is retrograde. So in some ways, retrogrades always work well for me because I have my natal Mercury is retrograde. But the things we're talking about are being able to not look just at the upcoming month, the next couple of weeks, but astrology can help you look at the upcoming year. It can help you look at where you started and where you are and in your astrological evolutionary process. All of those things are things that can happen. So if you haven't worked with really a good astrologer, maybe you printed your chart off the line and go, hey, well, yeah, I got my chart. But do you really know what it means? You're not going to find it by watching a bunch of YouTube videos. I will guarantee you, unless you have hundreds and hundreds of hours. And by the time you can say you really understand your chart because you've watched enough YouTube videos, if you watch the right ones, because some of them say crap stuff. I'm sure you found that, Rob, because I have. So if you're lucky enough to find all the good ones, then hell, you become an astrologer. But if you're not looking to become an astrologer, that's when you may want to go see our friend Rob here at innercenterastrology.com and say, teach me my chart so I can use it as the benefit it was meant to be. And that's why I wanted to have some of these conversations with you, Rob, is because, people kind of don't understand until they get into the world of astrology of how powerfully it can guide you. And they look at these little surface things, which sometimes will steer you in the wrong directions because you're not adding in all the layers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, with anything, there's certainly orders of importance and magnitude, and astrology is no different than that, for sure.
And we'll be right back, and we'll move on to our astrological weather forecast with Rob Stewart from innercenterastrology.com.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing
a job and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Hello, and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show. This is our Planetary Influences Week with Rob Stewart from innercenterastrology.com, where we talk about what's going on in the stars, in the skies, and how it's going to be affecting our astrological weather. So, Rob, let's get this party going.
All right. So so currently the sun is in Virgo. Currently, it's been there since late August. But currently, the sun is opposite Neptune. It'll be exactly opposite Neptune on September 17th. And when the sun is opposite Neptune, which happens once per year, really, there can be a tension between our core purpose and our idealism. So this sort of friction between, what is it that I want that's grounded and everything versus this ideal picture we can have in our mind as well. So there can be this sort of tension between, hey, things could be so much better, but they're not, or those sort of trade-offs and frictions. Neptune is really a sort of, in astrology terms, it represents escaping to a higher reality. It's associated with dreams and things like that. But sometimes it's related to seeing what we want to see instead of the entirety of reality itself. And when the sun is opposing Neptune in astrology, it represents a sort of friction sometimes between what we want and in this perfect ideal world versus what there is. So that's a theme that over the few days in astrology. We also have Mars square Venus right now, and that brings up some tensions potentially in relationships. This sort of, it's a very passionate energy, Mars and Venus. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. This is a classic saying with that. Of course, not in reality. But when Mars squares Venus, there can be this sort of friction in relationships in life. And the reason for that, of course, is to make breakthroughs and break through to a higher level of relationship. And Mars square Venus can bring opportunities to bring self-control into passionate sort of situations. There could also be emotional spending. That's another thing with Mars square Venus. Venus is, again, like you mentioned earlier, it's about what we value. It's about where we put our money and things like that. So with Mars square Venus, there can be some emotional spending and things of that nature. And we also have Saturn square Uranus right now. And with Saturn square Uranus, it sort of brings this energy of the new versus the old. Uranus wants to shake things up and be free, whereas Saturn represents responsibility, the daily life, the daily reality. And so when these two planets are squaring, which they were all year last year, it just brings this sort of friction between the shakeup for new things, but also the responsibilities of here and now. So these are some of the themes that are playing out currently. But we have the sun about to enter Libra, and over the past month, of course, the sun moves through the sky and through the backdrop of constellations. And as the sun is moving through those constellations in astrology, essentially it represents times where we can shine light in our life to look upon and to sort of explore those areas of life. And with the sun has been in Virgo over the past month, that's a time for making adjustments in life. It's about being putting the nose against the grindstone. It's about, and I'm sorry, I'm Mercury retrograde. I'm just being a bit slow with my words today. But, the sun in Virgo over the past month, there's been a lot of, according to astrology, self-analysis, making adjustments in life, identifying a problem and finding a solution to that problem, and finding ways of being useful in life. And it can be a time where we're a bit self-critical, and critical of others, but for the purpose of making change in life. And so with the sun entering Libra on September 23rd, the focus shifts, astrologically speaking, into areas of relationship. And, after Virgo, which is very self-critical, making adjustments within self, adjustments in our surroundings, with the sun in Libra, the focus becomes on relationship and finding peace and harmony and balance between oneself and the other. And so over the next month, while the sun is moving through Libra, there'll be opportunities in relationship to find, to put yourself in the other person's shoes, or, to bring more diplomacy into life. This is a great time for those types of themes. Do you have anything to throw in there regarding this, Dr. Kevin?
Well, so I'm going to comment on a couple of other things I want to throw out about the sun in Libra, and then we'll see what else you have, because then I'm going to go back to your very first thing, because I had comments on every one of them, but now I have to have you review them all, because
sure,
you're giving me 6 and my head just went, ah! You think you're speaking slow, but you're speaking slow and steady. Yeah. So I'm going to have you repeat all of those aspects one at a time. I will comment after you have said it, and then we will move to the next one. So I'm going to do Libra,
sure.
though, the Libra sun. I'm going to do the Libra sun here. Because, so first of all, for any of you that were listening closely and are very, on top of what you hear, you heard Rob say that, like we mentioned earlier, Venus is, about this and this. And when we said it earlier, we were talking about Libra. And there's a connection between Libra and Venus. But as soon as you said it, Rob, thank you, Mercury retrograde, like we said before, Venus is this. No, actually, we were talking about Libra, because we were talking about my house being, that are going through my Libra and stuff like that. And I know what you meant, but if we have a listener out there, they're going to go, we didn't say anything about Venus before. What is he talking about? That's Venus-Libra connection. Make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So now I do want to make sure that you don't fall into the astrological lazy version, which I'm not saying Rob did. He didn't do that. We should be very clear there. But some people make Libra and Venus interchangeable, but the qualities that he spoke of were qualities that both Venus and Libra do share, because Venus is basically, it is the Libra, the ruler of Libra, so to speak. And so, again, there's crossover, but they're not identical, and they work differently in your chart. And, and Libra can also, when we're in our time of Libra, Libra is cardinal air, and we are going out there, and as we're trying to find the harmony and the peace and the balance, and we are also doing stuff with our values and our sense of beauty and our sense of values and our sense of even, to some way, I'd even say our sense of justice, and then understanding other people. So when the sun is in Libra, and wherever it's hanging out in Libra in your chart, it is always a good time for a reevaluation about what is important to you in that area of your life, and what is your value set there. And since we're going to have that Mercury retrograde hanging out in that with that Libra sun, it's doubly a time for the whole time Mercury is retrograde to kind of reassess, are my values still my values around this? I mean, would you agree, Rob?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, a big value, when it comes to Libra, you mentioned values, and another theme with Libra is about boundaries. Are my boundaries aligned? It's a great time for all those themes.
So I'm gonna leave that one particular. I just wanted to make that comment about that Libra sun, and again, you know, it's that sun going through that house, and so there's going to be a focus. And as the sun first goes into Libra, it goes in my ninth, and then it transitions. I mean, in my 10th, and then it transitions into my 11th. So the whole beginning part of Libra is going to be bringing sunshine into my business stuff and my reputation in the world and how I put myself out in the world. And the sun is going to be illuminating that. And during that time period, I have a bunch of people coming over, and we're doing some rebranding, and we're doing a whole bunch of stuff about redoing things, which is a perfect time to do it with your sun in Libra in your 10th and then going into your 11th. So, see, I practice what I preach.
That's right.
What else do we need to talk about aspects? And then I'm going to throw comments in. We're going to go back and review the aspects. I'm going to throw some comments in about them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, like we said, we are in a Mercury retrograde, and that's through October 1st. Mercury goes direct on October 2nd, where there'll be a bit more forward movement in life. But, you know, right now we have 6 planets in retrograde motion, which really speaks to that this is a time it's a great time to sort of reevaluate and relook at things in our life. You know, we have 6 planets retrograde. Let me go take a look at here. But there's Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, all in retrograde motion, which with Jupiter, that's about relooking at the big picture. What is it that you know, the worldview, our beliefs, what's important, what's true with a capital T. This is a great time to sort of take a look and reevaluate, take in new information related to these things. Saturn, you know, where can I be more self-responsible? Where do I need to bring more self-authority into my life? Uranus retrograde, am I, you know, what is it that I'm, you know, am I honoring my own freedom? Am I honoring my own unique rebellious side? You know, these sort of, you know, am I able to shake things up when I need to and shake things off that are no longer needed? You know, to look at areas in life where that's needs to be relooked at. This is a great time for that. Neptune retrograde, where do I need more clarity with regards to seeing through some rose-colored glasses that we all wear in life? You know, what illusions are we seeing through? What places in life did we previously look at as very dreamy, but we're seeing it in things are, you know, where can you get more clarity in those areas? And then of course Mercury, you know, how's my thinking? You know, what thinking patterns need to be looked at and reevaluated? So, you know, we have all these retrograde planets, so it's a time of really looking back, taking stock, and that's a big theme here through the fall. But we are in Mercury retrograde, and Mercury is going to re-enter Virgo on September 23rd, and then Mercury will re-enter Libra later on. But as Mercury re-enters the sign of Virgo, it's a time that, you know, Mercury's at home in Virgo, but it's a time to reassess, you know, adjustments that need to be made in your life. Are you using your time wisely? Are you discerning in an optimal way? These are all themes related to that Mercury changing signs. Do you have any thoughts on this, Dr. Kevin?
Yeah, so first of all, and I know that different astrologers look at this different ways. So this is a question of how you see this. I would say, like with the Saturn retrograde, you can, and it's interesting because with Saturn and Uranus, who tend to be like naturally polar opposites, that they're both retrograde at the same time. And so there's this big, huge crossover. But with the Saturn retrograde, you can be asking, where should I be more self-disciplined? But you may also ask yourself, where am I being too rigid?
Yeah.
I
absolutely.
feel like, with your Saturn retrograde and your Uranus retrograde, and again, they're such mirrors to each other that we want to see what houses they're in, what signs they're in, how are they interacting with each other, how they're even interacting with your natal Uranus and your natal Saturn. But, I would look and say, are there places where, like with the Uranus retrograde, where maybe I am not being disciplined enough?
That's right.
Where I am,
That's right.
And so I think that sometimes it's easy to say, well, where am I not being disciplined enough? But we're not as quick to say, but where am I being too disciplined? And too disciplined oftentimes means too rigid.
That's right.
And so I look at this as a very powerful combination that if you are searching, if you're feeling like your life is not flowing the way you want it to flow, not going the way you want it to go, if you're feeling like you're either stuck or cut loose, floating without an anchor, both of those to me can be talking about Saturn, Uranus, and even Neptune issues in some way.
Yeah.
And so, again, this is that layering things together, because Saturn is not in the ocean by itself retrograde. It's hanging out with Uranus retrograde and Neptune retrograde, and they're going to be dinging each other, especially depending on the placement they have in your chart and in your and what houses they're in. And with the Neptune, I would always also push out, are they necessarily rose-colored glasses? To see something with a lack of clarity can also indicate somebody that's always seeing the dark side of everything, that thinks the world is out to get them, right?
Yeah.
Is there not that aspect of Neptune, or do you feel like it's only the rose-colored? Go ahead.
No, absolutely. And by rose-colored, I just mean seeing things from a tainted viewpoint, whether it's rose-colored or gloom-colored, doesn't matter. It's a distorted perception. And so, absolutely, it's a great point.
Yeah. I think that, for the most part, I think most people, when they hear rose-colored, always see everything rosy, like positive.
Right. Yep.
And there's the sound of our break, and we'll come back and we'll finish talking about those pessimistic glasses in a second, and the rest of this with Rob from InnerCenterAstrology.com.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Vox Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Join me every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio for Vox Novus, the new voice.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show and the week of planetary influences with Rob Stewart from Inner Center Astrology.com. That's Rob Stewart. So as we're talking all of this, if you go, God, I wish I knew where that fit in my chart. Want to know where that fits in my life. How can I apply this more? Go to innercenter.com and reach out to Rob. If you want to reach out to Rob before the show is over with questions for Rob or myself, you may do so by calling 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. So I'm going to get back. We were just finishing up about that as we're looking at how the Neptune is striking you, that it really, and you said it, and now I'm going to see if I can remember what you said, a distorted perspective. And so Neptune can give you a distorted perception, whether that is optimistic or pessimistic, it's still distorted. And this is a good time to see where may you not be seeing things with clarity. So what else? So I think I've covered all the retrogrades that you mentioned. I mean, we've already talked about Mercury retrograde quite extensively. And, Jupiter. I kind of think of a Jupiter retrograde sometimes as a good time to go in and see if because when we talk about Venus, we talk about our personal values. And, one of the things they talk about Jupiter and Venus as being the greater and the lesser benefic, because wherever it is, it brings some kind of benefit. But the Jupiter is a greater benefit to the greater world in my idea, in my kind of thought process. And I think that as we are establishing the values, there are our personal values, and then there's kind of what our world values are. And it may sound funny that they can be different, but they can and often are. We have a very close, intimate, personal set of values in the way we live, but we kind of have a different set of expectations when it's about the world. And I think that sometimes when Jupiter is retrograde, you're asked to look at that world, meaning what sign and what house for you that it's being retrograde in, that you're being asked to look and to examine what is the places where maybe your values or the way you perceive that value in the world or perceive yourself as a value in the world and back, and what are all those things that we're talking about when we talk about Jupiter, that it's a good time to evaluate, have they changed? Have you changed? Has your world changed in that area? Whatever area it is. And that, of course, is based on whatever area of your life, of your chart, i.e. of your life, that Jupiter's doing that in. But it's bringing a light in to say it's a good time to reevaluate those things. Do you feel like that's fair, Rob?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Another theme with Jupiter is rediscovering optimism and hope and faith. And so that's another theme that, it's a great time to look at areas where you've maybe lost hope or faith in something and something bigger than self, that type of thing. So it's a great time to reevaluate those areas of life.
So what other aspects? I want to make sure that we go over all of the stuff, and then if we have time, we'll go back and talk about that. I believe the first thing was a Neptune-Sun opposition.
Right.
But I want to get everything else out first.
Yeah, sure. So we have a new moon in Libra, September 25th. New moons, the moon cycle is a wonderful cycle to sort of know about and work with. And when there's a new moon, it's a wonderfully opportune time, astrologically speaking, to begin new projects. Those projects could be physical projects outside of yourself. They could be new intentions. They could be a whole number of different things. But essentially, it's a great time to plant new seeds in life. And with a new moon in Libra, it's about new beginnings and fresh slates in how we connect with others, how we relate to others. Are we seeing things from their walking a mile in another person's shoes, that type of thing. Also with Libra, we mentioned it earlier, though, is related to boundaries. Are your boundaries healthy? It's a great time to sort of, with new beginnings in that area. We also, during this new moon, have Venus and Mercury opposite Neptune. And so, this is also a really good time to confront, again, those distortions we see in our relationships, whether they're pessimistic or optimistic. This new moon is bringing opportunities to kind of see through, these distortions that we perceive, to come in alignment with, with more reality in our life, particularly in relationships, friendships, colleagues, romantic relationships, whatever those relationships are. Any thoughts on that, Dr. Kevin, with the new moon in Libra?
And you said that the new moon in Libra is in opposition to the Neptune.
Hang on, let me see. No, the Venus and Mercury are opposite Neptune. Let me check. Let's see. The moon and the sun are in a just outside of an opposition with Neptune. So this is more Venus and Mercury opposite Neptune.
Okay. And Mercury is retrograde and Neptune is retrograde. But Venus is moving forward. And so it talks to me when I think of the fact that you have two of those planets that are trying to get you to somehow do inner work, inner clarity, inner recognition, inner shift, inner change. And then you have this other planet that is telling you that you are looking to go out into the world, and it's about, all of those Venetian qualities of, your personal values and your love and things like this. And the thing that strikes me, and again, it's going to depend on what houses that it falls in, but I would be looking at questioning that this may be a good time for you to be stripping away any ways in which you value yourself or find or need the world to externally validate your value or your way of being in the world or what your sense of values and priorities are. And, you had talked earlier about a Venus-Mars square, and that Venus may go out and spend money as part of that. But that's emotional spending. And now we have Venus tied up in this opposition with Neptune and with Mercury. And I go, this Venus girl, she's working hard in this astrological cycle. She's working hard for her money. And I think that there is a lot of stripping away that's being asked and a reconsideration of, are your personal values yours? Are they still yours? And even though Venus is not the one that's retrograde, but I think this opposition is pushing you to look at, do you have to rethink this stuff, and do you have to clarify places where you have a distorted perspective of your value system in the relationship to the world? Does that make sense, or am I out on this leaf all by myself?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I mean, there's so much Libra energy, so to speak, over the next month. And I also, related to that, September 23rd, which is when the sun is moving into Libra, Mercury retrograde will be right there as well. The sun and Mercury retrograde, they're moving in opposite directions in the sky, but they meet September 23rd at the cusp of Libra. And so, that's a day, September 23rd, for new insights, new awareness, new perception, and looking back at, how are we valuing ourselves? Are we valuing other people in a fair and balanced way? These are all themes that could be themes around September 23rd.
Yep. And all of this stuff, when we're looking at the sun in Libra, we're also going to look that there's going to always be some kind of more intense or heightened energy in Venus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
That's
I said,
right.
that girl's working hard for her money this astrological cycle coming up.
That's right.
She's fighting with Mars, and she's fighting with Neptune, and she's crisscrossing with a Mercury retrograde. I mean, I think that there is, like you said, it's a strong Libra time for a lot of reasons, and the fact that there's a lot of Venus like activity in relationship, I think that that's also significant as well. So it's a time when you're going to find you cannot find balance, not easily. You will be drawn and driven to try to find the illusion of balance instead of accepting that sometimes out of balance is balance.
Right.
Did you head around?
Yeah, what's that old saying, balance is something that requires constant adjustment. The idea of, someone on a teeter-totter, and really difficult to stand right in the center and balance it completely all the time. There's adjustments that are needed. And so Libra is about just that. It's about finding balance with the intention of balance and working towards balance and fairness, equality, justice amongst people. And, Venus is entering the sign of Libra on September 29th. So again, this Libra theme continuing, and Venus in Libra is its own sign, its home sign. And it's very eloquent, energetically feeling in relationships. Again, whether that's friendships, colleagues, romantic, but it's a great time for connecting, and this sort of peaceful eloquence that occurs in relationships. This is a really good time for that as Venus moves through the constellation of Libra.
Yeah. And I think that this is an interesting time because the hot topic for the next month, because we're going into these midterm elections, and there's been a clearly drawn set of lines. Republicans say if we take power in Congress, we're going to push for a national abortion law. That we're going to limit it, and we're going to tell you what you can and can't do with your body. And the Democrats are saying we're going to protect Roe v. Wade on a national level. So that's a pretty black and white, back and forth issue where the lines have been drawn in the sand by both parties. They've both clearly said, if you give us Congress, this is what we're doing with this power. And of course, you still always have a presidential veto. And, but besides, for the midterm elections, this is it. And I would have to say, I think that this is a very Libran and Venetian topic. Does that make sense when I say that?
Yeah, absolutely. The intent or the requirement to find balance. Politics is a huge Libra, in a two-party system, anyways. It's definitely a big theme.
Yep. So I kind of have this energy, this image of if you talk about Libra and and trying to find balance, it's like on a teeter-totter trying to find balance. That somebody's going to be in the center of the teeter-totter, and they're going to be tap dancing for all they're worth. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. Rob, let's see how next month looks next month. Oh, the month after looks next month. I'll see you in about a month, Rob. Thank you.
All right.
Rob Stewart from InnerCenterAstrology.com.
Thanks for having me on, Dr. Kevin. It's always a pleasure. Take care.
Bye.